Revealed. The haunted storage unit of a sinister monster hunter. What lies hidden inside? The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting shadows that danced amongst the neatly lined homes of Maplewood. Sarah's breath quickened as she flipped the rusty padlock on the storage unit. She had stumbled upon it, buried in a pile of documents left behind after her husband's death. Her heart thudded against her ribs the way it did when she was a teenager sneaking into forbidden places. But this wasn't just any old unit. It belonged to Thomas Hudson, a man she thought she knew completely. With a final tug, the door creaked open to reveal a darkness that practically swallowed her. Cobwebs glistened in the weak flashlight beam, and a suffocating stillness hovered in the air. As she stepped inside, the smell of mildew stung her nostrils, and a shiver racked her spine. Old boxes lined the walls, each heavy with the weight of forgotten memories. Was this the corner of Thomas's life he had hidden from her? Fingers trembling, Sarah reached for a box labeled important in fraying letters. Her pulse raced as she pried it open. Inside were journals, thick and dog-eared, inked by a hand she knew well. But as she flipped to the first page, her heart sank. The words were chilling. There are monsters among us, hidden in plain sight, and we must guard the light from their grasp. Her thoughts spiraled. Who had her husband been? Doubts crept in as she read on. Each entry detailed terrifying accounts of things unseen, a shadow that moved against nature, a scream carried by the winds, threats she had dismissed as mere nonsense. But now, in this dim, suffocating space, they felt painfully real. Sometimes they take human form, he wrote. Beware of your neighbors. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The air prickled with tension, a silent scream looming just out of reach. Outside, the wind howled as shadows flickered past her windows at home. The whispers, subtle but insistent, wrapped themselves around her, promising doom. As she hurried to process what she had unearthed, the hairs on her neck stood on end. Something was definitely wrong. Tommy, her bright and blooming 5-year-old, had displayed the same unsettling shadows in his drawings. Creatures with wide grins and hollow eyes loomed in dark corners of his mind, creeping ever closer to becoming reality. Was this some part of their shared grief, or was it something more ominous? Panic seized her. Trust fell away. Even the neighbors, those seemingly perfect people who exchanged pleasantries over picket fences, now felt like watchful eyes, harboring secrets beneath their friendly facade. She couldn't sleep, she couldn't eat, and dread gnawed at her gut. What truths had been buried alongside her husband? As the walls of her home seemed to close in around her, the realization settled cold in her bones. She might be stepping into a world darker than she had ever known. With each breath, she felt the monster lurking just outside the safety of her door, waiting for the right moment to strike. And as she turned to leave the storage unit, a cold gust swept through, shrouding her in a chilling embrace. The door slammed shut behind her, locking her in a facade of normalcy filled with unspeakable horrors. What dark realities lay ahead, ready to claw their way into her carefully constructed life? Sarah stumbled backward as the door slammed shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the cavernous darkness. Heart racing, she fumbled with the flashlight, its beam flickering like her resolve. What had trapped her in this grim space? She felt a shudder creep down her spine, and it spiraled into panic as possibilities flashed through her mind. Think, she whispered, frustration edging her voice. The journals lay open on the musty floor, an unsettling invitation to delve deeper. But the weight of each word stung her conscience. Bewitched by the ominous warnings of Thomas, she hesitated, clawing at the sanity tethering her to the world outside. A scuttling noise broke the silence. Her breath hitched. She swung the flashlight toward the sound, illuminating a wall filled with shelves stacked haphazardly with jars, each one sealed tight. What lay within? Could they hold monsters? A shiver ran through her as she felt the cold reality settling over her mind. Her husband's work had become a sickly curiosity. She stepped closer, her curiosity battling the primal urge to flee. Every fiber of her being screamed for her to turn and bolt from this place. Yet something compelled her to look closer. Each jar bore a label, scrawled in her husband's handwriting. Fury of shadows. The unseen grin. Lingering whisper. The names echoed like sinister incantations in her mind. A cold sweat trickled down her back as images of her son's drawings filled her thoughts, depictions filled with nightmarish creatures. Had Thomas been trying to warn her, or prepare her? The scent of decay permeated the air, thickening it, almost tangible. Suddenly, the urge to know, to understand how deep the darkness ran, overshadowed her fear. She reached out and unlatched the closest jar, the lid releasing with a pop that reverberated ominously in the still air. The contents inside shifted unsettlingly, revealing what looked like a murky, swirling shadow. It twisted and coiled like a living being, instinctively pulling away from the light. Her heart pounded as the darkness seemed to sigh, almost as if acknowledging its newfound freedom. "What is this?" she gasped, recoiling. But the movement only seemed to awaken it, and an echo of laughter rippled through the room. A cruel, childlike giggle that sent terror crashing into her chest. It wasn't just her imagination. Something was here with her, lurking beyond the veil of her flashlight's beam. The air grew thicker, feeling like it was alive, electric with malice. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah stumbled backward, her foot knocking into a box. It tipped over, spilling out items that had once belonged to Tommy, his toys, the very ones he had insisted were for playing with the monsters. Her breath hitched as she scooped one up, a stuffed bear, its eyes blackened and glossy, as if filled with the very essence of nightmares. The laughter swelled again, a cacophony of mockery that pierced through the suffocating darkness. Sarah spun toward the door but found it solid, an unyielding wall trapping the horror within. Panic clawed at her throat as she realized that this was more than just a storage unit. It was a prison for unspeakable things that her husband had dealt with. And now, they were pulling her into their web. The walls seemed to bulge, shadows creeping toward her like spider legs, intricate and vile. She felt the rush of desperation surface as the laughter grew louder, enveloping her, feeding off her fear. She was not just looking into the past. She had now become part of something far more sinister, and there was no escape. And as she turned to confront the dark whispers, she knew she had to make a choice. To run and leave everything behind, Thomas, the truth, or confront the horrors that threatened to destroy them all. "What will you do, Sarah?" The shadows whispered, lurking closer. But who was really asking? The laughter intensified, a cruel symphony dancing in the air, wrapping around Sarah like a suffocating shroud. Every instinct screamed for her to run, but her legs felt weighed down by something darker than fear. The room constricted, shadows stretching and twisting, as if alive and hungry. Where was the exit? She turned to the shelves, desperate for something, anything that could help her escape this nightmare. As she scanned the jars, her heart sank. Fury of shadows, lingering whisper, each label felt like a taunt. Then her eyes landed on a jar marked truth. Its contents shimmered faintly in the light, almost beckoning her. Was this the key to understanding? With trembling hands, she reached for it, her breath hitching as the shadows recoiled, hissing like unseen serpents. The jar felt cold against her fingers, frost creeping from the surface. She froze, battling the urge to dispose of it immediately, yet her curiosity twisted into a feverish determination. She unscrewed the lid, and the coldness intensified, sending an icy tendril of dread creeping up her arm. The moment the jar was open, a thin wisp of gray mist spilled forth, curling around her ankles like the fingers of a ghost. It twisted upward, revealing fleeting faces screaming, pleading, lost. The air thickened with a cacophony of whispers, a disjointed chorus of cries that clawed at her mind. The shadows roared in protest, thrashing in anger as they swirled backward, retreating from the truth being unleashed. "Sarah," a voice called, soft yet ominous. weaving through the chaos. Her heart skipped. It sounded familiar. "Help me, Tommy." Her breath caught. Desperation pushed her to call out, "Tommy, is it you?" The mist surged, swirling faster, transforming. She could make out the image of her son, distorted but recognizable, pleading through the fog. "Get out, Mom." His voice cracked, echoing with panic. "You have to run." He was trapped, caught within this veil of shadows, just like she was. Every second stretched, heavy with dread. She had a choice to make: surrender to this anguish or fight against it. Instinct kicked in, and she bolted toward the darkness, feeling the weight of his gaze urging her on. "Leave. Don't look back." But how could she abandon him? Rage surged within her, fueling determination. "I won't let you go," she shouted into the chaos, ignoring the laughter that turned into shrieks around her at that moment. As if drawn to her resolve, shadows lunged forward, coiling around her in a vicious dance. She could feel their icy breath on her skin, whispering horrors only hinting at what lurked in their depths. She swung the flashlight wildly, trying to keep them at bay, but the beams flickered as darkness encroached. "Fight, Sarah. Fight," she urged herself, holding tightly to the jar of truth, hoping it would shield her from their clutches. But the shadows shrieked louder, contorting into grotesque shapes, mocking her every attempt to resist. Then, through the swirling nightmares, a sudden crack of light burst through a beam of pale illumination slicing through the black. She squinted, heart hammering with urgency. It illuminated a barely noticeable door at the far end of the room. "Tommy," she shouted, lunging toward the light. Felt like liberation. The shadows lunged after her, the laughter now frantic, desperate. What lay behind that door? "Mom, you can do it." Tommy's voice rang out again, solid and intertwining with hope. Sarah's fingers reached for the door handle. An icy blast pulled back on her leg, almost dragging her down. She was inches from salvation when the shadows hissed, "You will stay with us forever." But she refused to give in. With one last surge of strength, she twisted the handle, wrenching the door open. The light poured in, bathing her in warmth and dissolving the shadows that had claimed so much, leaving only whispers of fear behind as she stepped through. The darkness swelled behind her, shattering against the bright reveal. The laughter faded to hollow echoes, intertwining with the cries of those still trapped within. Relief washed over her, but the weight of uncertainty loomed. What lay beyond the door? Had she truly escaped, or was this just the beginning? The door creaked ominously as it closed behind her, a final whisper echoing in the emptiness. You cannot escape the truth. What truth awaited her now? Bright light enveloped her, pulsating like a heartbeat as Sarah stumbled forward. The abrupt warmth felt foreign against her chilled skin. She squinted, heart racing, trying to make sense of her new surroundings. The stark, white walls glared back at her. She found herself in a small, sterile hallway lined with steel filing cabinets. The eeriness of the environment sent a fresh wave of dread coursing through her veins. Where was she? Had she truly escaped, or had she walked into another layer of this malevolent nightmare? A low hum resonated through the space, a sound that made her skin prickle. Each step echoed sharply, a reminder that she was utterly alone. But was she? The echoes twisted, morphing into distorted voices that grazed against her thoughts, churned in her stomach. "Help me," they whispered, chilling her to the bone. She paused, taken aback. Tommy's voice? No, it was different, like 1,000 voices pleading at once. Shivering, she pressed onward. Turning the corner, she spotted a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway. Hesitation gnawed at her. What if it led to more darkness? But there was no other choice. The walls felt like they were closing in, the whispers intensifying with every breath she took. "Please," the voices implored again, echoing off the walls, pulling at her heartstrings. Sarah couldn't recognize them, but they tugged at a familiar place within her, a connection woven from fear. As she reached the door, she hesitated, hand hovering over the cold metal handle. A chill shot through her. Was there something waiting for her inside? Drawing in a shaky breath, she pushed the door open. The hinges squealed, slicing through the ambient noise. What she saw made her blood run cold. A room bathed in unnatural light, cluttered with jars labeled in meticulous handwriting. Each jar contained some sort of essence swirling within. Shadows of past horrors danced lazily in the glass, laughing silently. Fury of shadows, whisper of despair, and more. They felt like sins encased, the weight of countless tragedies heavy in the air. Her heart did a backflip when she noticed the far wall. It was covered in photographs. Each one displayed a person captured mid-scream, faces contorted in terror. Names scrawled beneath them in red ink. Who were these people? What had happened to them? Sarah, a voice, stronger now, reverberated through the chaos. But it wasn't Tommy. It was deep, menacing, filled with promise of torment. The heavy air shifted, and she could feel an unseen presence pressing against her back. "Who's there?" she shouted, anger bubbling beneath her fear. The shadows coalesced, forming the silhouette of a figure, grotesquely twisted yet familiar. Tendrils of darkness poured from its mouth, whispering secrets of the damned. "You can't escape what you've released." Before she could react, the photographs shimmered. Each face seemed to shift, one by one turning in her direction, their eyes now full of deep-seated anguish. "I scream for you, I cry for you," they chanted in unison, voices rising in a chilling crescendo. Breathless, Sarah stumbled back, heart racing, panic setting in. She dropped her gaze to the jar of truth still in her grasp. What had it unleashed? Was this her own doing? In that moment of dread, memories began to flood her mind, images of what had happened to her son, echoing her accusations of failure, and shadows from the nightmares lingering before her. The figure advanced, its voice warped with malevolence. "Face it, Sarah. You've opened the door. Now you must choose. Who will you save?" Desperation surged as she backed away, hitting the other side of the room. She couldn't look at their faces any longer. Couldn't bear the weight of their hopes and despair. I will save him. I promise." But it felt hollow, empty. The laughter rose again, but now it mingled with screams, her own screams, as they echoed through her mind, drowning her in confusion. The shadows closed in as panic surged. Could she really save anyone? The presence loomed over her, compelling her to confront the truth. "Will you surrender?" it rasped, voice dripping with foreboding. That as the walls began to close in with the chill of darkness returning, Sarah felt the last bit of hope slip through her fingers. That in her frantic state, she caught movement in the corner of her eye, a flicker of yet another door, this one hidden behind the cabinets. What lay beyond? Another escape? Or deeper horrors? "Sarah," a voice cried, a flicker of recognition. Was it Tommy? "Mom! Hurry!" Panic surged as she faced the choice. Stay and confront the twisted reality, or chance it all on the unknown. With a final glance at the shattered faces around her, she made her choice, racing toward the new door. But the whispers followed her, the sinister chant echoing in the silence behind. Choose wisely what awaited her beyond that door. The door swung open, revealing a sliver of darkness beyond. Sarah squeezed through, heart pounding against her ribs. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, the eerie light from the previous room vanished. She gasped in the sudden blackness that enveloped her like a thick fog. "Mom!" The voice was clearer now, filled with urgency. "Over here." She stumbled in the dark, reaching out as if the air was solid. Every fiber of her being screamed to run back, but the echo of the tormented souls and the crushing weight of despair propelled her forward. "Tommy?" she whispered, voice trembling. The only answer was a haunting silence that stretched and twisted around her like a snake coiling tighter. Fear gnawed at her, creeping through her veins, tinged with the metallic taste of impending doom. Suddenly, a faint glimmer caught her eye. Straining, she moved toward it. The light flickered to life, a single bulb swinging precariously above her, casting odd shadows that danced on the walls. The room opened up around her, revealing a dusty storage space lined with decaying furniture and broken relics. "Mom!" Tommy's voice again, closer this time. She turned, squinting into the gloom. The remnants of the room took form. Old boxes were strewn carelessly, their contents spilling out like forgotten memories. But something else caught her attention. A figure huddled in the corner, little more than a silhouette against the wall. Tommy! Panic surged. She rushed toward the shadow, heart racing. Mommy's here. As she neared, the shape shifted, and the light flickered ominously. It wasn't Tommy. The figure was grotesque, its head cocked at an unnatural angle, eyes shining like twin voids. It grinned, an unnerving smile that twisted its features into a nightmarish mask. No! Sarah screamed, stumbling back. The creature screeched, a sound punctuated with maniacal laughter that grated against her nerves. The room began to swirl around her, memories flashing visions of moments lost, of choices made. Her own heart's cries echoed back at her from the shadows, taunting, reminding her of her failures. The creature lunged forward, and Sarah stumbled back, knocking into something hard, falling into the debris. Pain shot through her leg, but she couldn't focus on that. She had to get to Tommy. Tommy, where are you? She yelled, desperation choking her. From the depths of the room, she heard it again, the faint call of her son, still trapped somewhere within the darkness. Mom, I'm in here. A little closer, the creature hissed, its breath a rotting wind. Just follow the sound of his sweet voice. Shut up. She hurled back, fear and fury merging into a punch of adrenaline. The creature's laughter morphed into something more insidious, feeding off her terror. She turned to the far wall, scanning desperately. Was there another way out? But the shadows were thick, pressing in, and the creature advanced, dragging its twisted frame with an unnatural grace. Your son is waiting, he needs you, it taunted, cruel amusement dripping from every word. Or are you ready to join the others? Sweat trickled down her back. The struggle must end here. She couldn't let her son be the next face trapped in the torment of lost souls. She inhaled sharply, mustering what courage she had left as she pushed herself onto her feet. With each heartbeat echoing in her ears, she steeled herself, lunged forward, and kicked aside a box of crumbling memories. She raced toward Tommy's voice, hoping desperately she wasn't walking into the abyss. Tommy, she shouted. I'm coming. But something shifted in the darkness. The laughter grew louder, multiplying, surrounding her with an unchecked menace. Choose wisely, a voice whispered, the shadows gleefully reminding her of the stakes. She heard it then, the faint sound of something moving. Was it Tommy trying to break free? Or something else entirely? Mom! The voice was closer now, almost in reach. But the room twisted, and everything dimmed. Would she really find him? Or would this whisper lead her deeper into the nightmare? The next moment might decide everything. Would she grasp salvation or plunge into horror? The shadows thickened, and she felt the cold tendrils reach for her again. What lay ahead was uncertain, and the fate that awaited her was trembling on the edge. Mom! Hurry! With a final breath, she dashed forward. But horror lingered like a ghost. What if she wasn't ready for what she would find in that final light? The shadows tightened around her, aching with the weight of what she feared might lie ahead. Sarah stumbled, her breath quickening, each inhalation a reminder of her vulnerability. Tommy, she gasped, her voice strained, struggling against the growing encroachment of dread. The sound of her son's voice shattered like glass, shattering any last remnants of comfort in this place. Mom, over here. Each syllable felt like a lifeline, pulling her deeper. The creature's laughter ricocheted against her ears, an echo that fused with her own despair. She forced her legs to move, adrenaline pumping through her system as her survival instinct screamed. The walls closed in, decorated with shadows of forgotten memories, twisting and morphing into unspeakable horrors. A flicker of light cut through the blackness, but it was fleeting. The bulb swung frantically, casting momentary silhouettes that danced grotesquely. Sarah's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, desperate to see her son break free from the clutches of the murky darkness. Tommy, where are you? Panic laced her words, but the shadows responded only with silence. They laughed. The air grew thick, suffocating, coiling around her throat like a serpent. Follow the light, Sarah, the creature said, its voice a hiss that chilled her to the bone. "Yes, lost. Just as you are." "No." She felt a new wave of courage surge from deep within. "I want to listen to you." She took a deep breath, fighting to keep her focus. As she moved further into the elusive light, the faint outline of a door revealed itself at the far end of the room. It stood ominously ajar, beckoning, threatening, hinting at answers but cloaked in danger. Tommy's voice came again, more insistent. "Mom, please." The door groaned as she approached, the sound reminiscent of a slumbering giant being stirred. But beyond it, shadows writhed, painting the edges of her confidence with uncertainty. "Step through," the creature wheezed, its twisted grin widening. "You'll find more than just your son in that moment." A realization gripped Sarah. The room pulsed around her as if it were alive, feeling her fear, amplifying it. The shadows weren't just manifestations of her dread. They were alive, feeding off it. She gulped, her heart racing, knowing time was slipping. "I'll find him," she shouted defiantly, as she pushed her body forward, tears of panic streaking down her face. The air shimmered, almost electric, as she stepped closer to the door. Mom Tommy's voice sounded further away now, penetrating her resolve more than ever. She flung the door open wide. "Come on, Tommy," she cried, plunging into the blinding light. But once inside, the world twisted again, and she found herself back in the same dark storage room, now even more warped. "Your son?" The creature coiled closer, its voice breaking into a sinister whisper. "Yes, not what you think." A chill seized her, its implications unfulfilled. "Tommy? What did it mean?" Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, dark clouds swirling above like a fatal storm ready to crash. "Choose." Sarah. The shadows danced, revealing fleeting images of a laughing boy and then something darker. A fleeting glance into an alternate reality? Or something worse? She felt the creature's breath upon her neck, rancid and heavy. The air vibrated with a palpable energy, as if the walls themselves were anticipating her decision. Sarah could almost taste the impending danger. Her instincts roared for her to flee. "Mom! Help!" The voice echoed, but in her heart, doubt grew like a weed. She felt suffocated, anxiety pressing down on her like a weight. Was Tommy truly waiting for her? Or was this another trick? The choice hung in the balance. The creature locked eyes with her, an unsettling hunger shimmering beneath its ghastly facade. Will you save him? Or will you choose to forget the truth? Fear threatened to consume her, heart thundering as she faced the unknown. Would she have the courage to confront whatever horror awaited her, or would she collapse under the weight of that terrifying choice? The darkness whispered still, promising, more than she could ever want to know. Time pressed on. Would she fight her way out, or become another lost soul? The moment hung like a breathless pause, echoing with her name, Sarah. And then, before she could decide, the door slammed shut behind her, sealing her fate. In that moment, she realized her answer wasn't just a choice. It was the doom of everyone in the shadows, waiting with bated breath. The walls of the storage room loomed like towering sentinels, closing in on Sarah as the oppressive darkness seeped into her bones. The pounding of her heart echoed in her ears, drowning out Tommy's desperate cries. She stumbled backward, panic clawing at her chest. How had everything twisted into such a nightmare? "Mom!" The voice sounded like a shattering glass pane, glimmering with hope and despair. Yet, that bright hope only deepened her dread. What if he was truly in danger? "Tommy!" she bellowed, her voice weak against the echo of the creature's laughter. It rippled through the air, a grotesque mockery that spiraled around her, tugging at her mind and senses. She fought against its grip, but the shadows succeeded in wrapping tighter around her. "Where are you?" she cried into the void, searching for an answer in the oppressive stillness. "Right here." His voice was closer now, threading through the veil of shadows that knotted the room. But just as it seemed like she could reach him, the air cracked with tension. The laughter of the creature surged once again, sharper and more menacing. "Mom, you have to choose," chortled. "Will you save the boy, or will you save yourself?" Those words struck deep, resonating within her as the ground shifted underfoot. Flickering images dragged her gaze, a younger Tommy playing in the park, beaming with joy, then shifting to a grim visage of shadows creeping around a darkened figure. Was this her past or a warning? No. I want to be your pawn, Sarah screamed defiantly, clenching her fists tight against her sides, her nails digging into her palms. The creature stopped its dance, surprised, its grin faltering momentarily. She wasn't just acting out of fear. She felt the surge of defiance electrify her being. The very walls seemed to vibrate with her rising will. Tommy, I'm coming. She launched herself toward where she sensed his energy, her heart commanding her to charge ahead, regardless of the threats binding her. The shadows whipped at her, tendrils of darkness clutching at her ankles, trying to bind her. Panic mixed with adrenaline as memories flooded her, his laughter, his sweet bedtime stories, the way he would hug her after bad dreams. Every image ignited a fire inside her. She would not abandon him. Let him go, she shouted, fighting through the creep of darkness that threatened to engulf her. The room twisted and rattled, testing her resolve, the laughter now laced with annoyance. So brave, the creature cooed, slithering closer, its form shifting, a silhouette woven of nightmares. But don't be a fool. You would sacrifice everything for a mere child? The shadows shuddered, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah glimpsed the truth behind the menace. Was Tommy truly waiting for her? Or was he just another deception layered in this malignant existence? Was she merely a player in this ghastly game? Mom, please. Tommy's voice cut through the haze, more fervent now, and the urgency of his plea fueled Sarah's resolve. The shadows pressed against her with crushing intensity, seeping into her thoughts, whispering doubts. You'll forget if you let go, they will lose you, they hissed, mocking her desperation. Sarah's mind spun, battling against the weight pushing down on her. With a shuddering breath, she banished the doubts that threatened to crush her. She had to believe, had to fight back. No, you're wrong. With every ounce of strength, she tore through the surging darkness, each advance releasing bursts of light and hope from within. The very air around her buzzed with energy, and suddenly, she felt the warmth of the light enveloping her, a beacon in the overwhelming void. One final push, and she burst through the last veil of shadow. Sarah found herself in an expansive chamber, light flooding from every corner, illuminating what lay ahead. But something was wrong. As she blinked, processing the reality around her, the laughter she had outrun echoed again, only this time. It was joined by another sound, an ominous rumble, like thunder foretelling an approaching storm, and in the center of the room stood a figure, cloaked and faceless, watching her impending arrival with eyes unseen. Welcome, Sarah, it intoned, voice smooth but dripping with malice. You've chosen, but do you truly know what you've awakened? The air thickened, and behind the figure, shadows illuminated a harrowing scene. A mirror, reflecting not just the room, but twisted images of the lives she could have led. Each portrayal was a dreary reminder, a piece of an elaborate web crafted by the unseen hands of the creature lurking beyond. Terror clawed at her throat as the realization sank in. This wasn't the end. A new choice loomed before her. Would she turn back to fight, or be consumed by the very reflections of her own fears? Make a choice, Sarah. The figure beckoned, a sinister smile curling across an unseen face. Would she embrace darkness, or would light be her salvation? The answer hung like a specter in the air, waiting for the next heart-stopping moment. Sarah's blood ran cold as she stared into the mirror, each distorted reflection warping her sense of reality. They showcased not just uncanny moments from her own life, but also twisted versions of Tommy screaming, pleading, fading away. Shadows danced in the corners of the chamber, restless and alive. They whispered secrets, fraying her nerves as they attempted to break her focus. Choose, Sarah, the faceless figure said, its voice smooth, yet somehow rotten. Will it be the safety of your past or the dread of your future? With every heartbeat, the reflections taunted her. One image glimmered a moment in a distant park, pure joy radiating from Tommy's laughter as he soared high on the swings, oblivious to the darkness creeping near. That picture shifted, turning sinister as shadows slipped into frame, twisting joy into anguish. A whisper cut through the turbulence, sharp and chilling. "You'll lose him, Sarah." "No," she shouted, clenching her fists. "I refuse to believe you." The chamber trembled, vibrating with her defiance. In that instant, the mirror rippled like water in a disturbed pond. The figures within morphed, merging into monstrous doubles of her own fears, debt collectors, faceless neighbors, judgmental stares. Each was a reflection of her past mistakes, potential failures, a list of regrets stretching to infinity. "What path will you take? Fear or courage?" The voice taunted her, chilling down to her very core. Beyond the reflections, she could sense the oppressive weight of darkness, threatening to devour her whole. The air grew thick, heavy enough to choke on. Her mind raced back to Tommy, the sweet boy, who looked up at her with starry eyes, filled with trust. She had to choose wisely. But what did she really want? To save him or to save herself? "Let him go!" she screamed at the entity, rage blurring her vision. "Yes, not yours to take." Her words seemed to create ripples in that ominous presence, and for a moment, the laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling stillness. The figure tilted its head, intrigue sparking in the unseen depths. "Such spirit, but will it last?" it mused, as shadows darkened again around her, snaking up her legs, pulling at her resolve. Then, with a sudden jolt, the floor beneath her shifted into a black abyss. She felt herself slipping, a void yawning wide, threatening to devour her completely. Panic surged through her veins. Sarah flailed, scrambling to hold on to something, anything, even the darkness that seemed to offer her a momentary reprieve from the swirling chaos. "Mom, please!" The chant broke through, echoed in a haunting, hollow tone. It was Tommy. His voice drew her back towards that light, igniting a remnant of hope she dared not let die. With renewed fury, Sarah reached out towards the mirror, her reflection a muddled storm of fear, rage, and determination. "I choose love. I choose hope." The nothings surrounding her began to quiver and crack, like broken glass refracting light. The laughter returned, deafening and wild, but it was filled with a hint of desperation. "You can't escape your fate," it howled, fury rising like smoke in a fire. "The choice has only begun." Then everything shattered, breaking into pieces of glass and darkness that enveloped her with dizzying speed. Sarah gasped, suspended in mid-air, the world around her collapsing down into the void. She thought she might fall forever, until a single ray of light pierced through the consuming dark. The light glowed like a beacon, and she reached out fiercely, aiming for the warmth. "Tommy," she called, but the voice filled with fear echoed back at her, swallowed by the shadows closing in once again. And in that blinding brilliance she saw it. Another reflection, one she hadn't noticed before. It was not just a choice. It was an escape route, cloaked in light, promising salvation. Would she dive into that beacon or risk it all to save Tommy? The decision weighed like an anchor tied to her heart as she spiraled towards the light. The ground trembled again, and the sinister laughter resumed, feverish and relentless. "Sarah," it echoed, wrapping around her consciousness. "You're not alone in this fight." Would she embrace the light, or plunge deeper into saving him? The answer dangled, tantalizingly close, yet maddeningly out of reach. "Make your choice." Darkness beckoned behind her, clawing at her back. Not knowing where this path would lead next, Sarah needed to decide before it was too late. The light enveloped Sarah, blinding yet soothing, like sunlight through clouds after a storm. Her heart raced as she felt herself pulled closer, an invisible tether that promised safety, warmth, and an escape from the oppressive dark. The sinister laughter still echoed, distant yet ever present, a warning that chased her. She strained to push past the overwhelming pull of despair lurking behind, every pulse resonating with doubts and fears clawing at her heart. "Tommy," she whispered, imagining his face a smile bright with innocence, a shield against the gathering tide of shadows. Was she really prepared to leave him behind? "Make your choice," a voice murmured again, but this time it wrapped around her like a spider's web, sticky and suffocating. Sarah stammered as she reached for light. That sacred warmth was just within grasp when the darkness shifted, morphing like oil on water. In an instant the light flickered. The once stable beams now jolted unpredictably, casting eerie shadows. Fear twisted in her gut. She felt pulled in two directions, the consuming light and the echo of Tamiya's sobs reverberating in the darkness. Suddenly, the air grew cold, a chilling gust that sent shivers down her spine. A shadow detached itself from the dark mass, humanoid yet monstrous, with hollow eyes that hungered for her soul. Its form wavered, an invitation masked as a threat. "Leave your past behind," it breathed, its voice like rusted steel scraping against stone. "Embrace the void, and your boy's pain will cease." Sarah's breath quickened. The image of Tommy faded in her mind, his laughter replaced by the haunting cries echoing in her ears. Was this the choice she had to make? Sacrifice her memories for his safety? No, she gasped, defiance sharpening her clarity. "I won't give in." The shadow lunged towards her, reaching with elongated fingers that shimmered like glass. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, steadying herself, reminding herself of what she cherished most, the warmth of Tommy's embrace, that undeniable bond tethering them. "Tommy, I'm coming," she shouted, her voice ringing with fierce determination. The reflection in the light pulsed, a pathway forged of promise, as she plunged forward into the warmth, battling against the encroaching grip of the shadows. The light engulfed her, bright and blinding, lifting her above the fray. In a swift moment, everything shifted. As if she crossed through a veil, the echoing laughs and menacing whispers dimmed into muffled confusion. She found herself on the ground, panic sweeping in like a tide. The room she lay in was foreign, cold concrete walls etched with dark stains, shelves of dust-covered boxes looming ominously around her. "Mom?" Tommy's voice faltered, shaky yet closer now. Sarah shot up, eyes wide, scanning the shadows for the source of the sound. There he was, trembling at the far end of the room, illuminated by the flickering overhead light. "Tommy!" She reached for him, but the moment she did, the room trembled beneath her. A pulsating darkness writhed around them, morphing the familiar into terror. The shadows clung to the walls, creeping closer, becoming grotesque figures with hollow eyes just like the one she had seen before. "Help me, Mom!" His voice carried urgency, thin and crackling with fear. A screech echoed through the chamber, splintering the strange calm. Each figure pushed at the edges of her resolve, crawling forth with insatiable hunger. "Run!" she shouted, taking a step toward him. But the shadows slithered, the weight of their presence growing heavier, pushing against her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, yet every fiber of her being urged her to move forward and embrace him. The darkness shrieked in fury, a cyclone of rage swirling around, threatening to drown them both. "Stay with me, Tommy." But as she dashed toward him, the world warped. The space twisted, stretching like elastic, and in a heartbeat, Tommy was snatched away into a whirlpool of shadows. "Mom!" His cry dissolved into the chaos. Terror seized her heart. She had to act. Time was dissolving like sugar in water, leaking into the abyss. "Fight!" The shadowy figures howled, their voices like knives cutting through her determination. There's no escape. She had to find him before the darkness consumed them both. Something deep within her ignited fury, love, fear. Sarah took a deep breath, grounding herself amidst the chaos. "Tommy, I'm coming." With resolve swelling into a surge, Sarah plunged toward the consuming blackness, drawn by the echo of her son's voice, willing to confront the dread that had taken him. As she dove deeper into the void, a chilling realization crept up her spine. This fight was just beginning. What more awaited them in the depths of this void? What would the shadows reveal next? The swirling darkness felt alive, a relentless beast clawing at Sarah's resolve. Every second stretched, filled with muffled cries and shadows writhing close. "Mom!" Tommy's voice sent anguish slicing through her heart. She pushed desperately against the chaos, searching for hope in the tempest of despair. "Tommy," she called, her voice a lifeline over the madness. With each frantic breath, she propelled herself deeper, determined to break through the suffocating blackness. She refused to lose him, to let the shadows claim her life and her son's future. Suddenly, the darkness shifted, pulling back like a curtain. In its place revealed a vision of torment Tommy, trapped within a cage of shadow, surrounded by grim figures whispering softly. Their eyes glinted with malice, mirroring the fears Sarah had faced. He looked so small, so vulnerable, encased within the most terrifying memories her mind could conjure. No! Rage surged through her. Blood pounding in her ears, she raced toward the vision, reaching out as if she could push aside the oppressive darkness. "I won't let them take you." The shadows hissed in protest, slithering back, but her resolve blinded their taunts. She could feel the weight of their doubt, pressing, urging her to turn back. They whispered lies, feeding off her anxiety. "You can't save him. He has lost to you." But she fought against the pull of despair, pushing harder, refusing to believe it. "I believe in you, Tommy," she shouted, her words surging like fire. "I'm here. I won't leave you." The darkness around her roared, torn between her fierce love and the hunger to plunge her into fear. With every ounce of energy, she charged forward, and as she neared the cage, a barrier of light flickered within. It was the pulse of hope. But the creatures grasped at her, their shadowy hands clawing at her ankles. With every step, she felt herself slipping, their icy fingers gnawing away at her strength. "Stay strong, Mom," Tommy cried, his face twisted in determination. Summoning every ounce of strength she had left, Sarah screamed, "I will not give up." Echoes of defiance reverberated through the chamber, breaking several bindings that clung to her like chains. The light shimmered, pouring through the cracks, illuminating the grotesque figures. Suddenly, a surge of warmth enveloped her, wrapping around her like a protective cocoon. It fueled her spirit, igniting each frightened heartbeat with bravery. She reached toward the cage, fingers brushing against it as the light pulsed. The figures recoiled, their laughter turning to howls of rage. "Tommy, hold on," she yelled, her heart pounding as she pushed against the shadows until the brightness began to slice through the darkness. It cut through the thick fog, illuminating the room, and fragments of whispers scattered. She could feel the strength of the light dissolving their malevolent grasp, and in that moment, everything shifted. "Mom!" Tommy reached for her, his voice a beacon. "Please!" With a final push, Sarah forced the barriers apart. Light erupted from her palms, radiating outward like a burst of fireworks, shattering shadowy chains that had held him captive. Their laughter turned to screams, unraveling like threads spun from a spool. She could feel their power waning, weakening as the warmth engulfed her. In one euphoric moment, she pulled Tommy from the shadows. And just like that, the cage shattered into glimmering shards, the darkness receding as it dissolved into mist. They tumbled forward into the warmth, their bodies colliding in a fierce embrace. She breathed in his scent, grounding herself, reassuring her spirit. He was safe. "We did it, Mom," Tommy exclaimed, joy bursting from him as he looked up with gleaming eyes, filled with glints of innocence. But the moment shattered when they heard a low growl swirling from the remnants of darkness lingering at the edges. The figure of Malice loomed, a twisted shadow pouring from the depths, its hollow eyes locked onto them. "You may have escaped this time, but shadows never disappear," it echoed, its voice a sorrowful melody mixed with rage. "Your fight has only begun." With tremors of dread lurking at the back of her mind, Sarah could feel the weight of what lay ahead. They had won this battle, but the war against the darkness did not end here. The door they had opened together would need to be closed with courage anew. "Let us go, Tommy. Together, we'll face whatever comes next," she said firmly, gripping her son's hand with a strength born from love as they stepped forward into the emerging dawn. Its light spilling across the path, Sarah felt a flutter of hope ignite within. They would not let shadows consume their lives, because together they could face anything. Mom, Tommy's voice wavered. What if they come back? Sarah knelt, looking into his trusting eyes. They might, but as long as we fight for one another, we'll always find the light. With a shared breath, they walked onward into the bright horizon, ready to face the struggles that lay ahead, bound by love and the promise to never surrender. The shadows may be waiting, but together, they would shine brighter. Hey there! If you enjoyed that thrilling conclusion and want to see more exclusive stories like this, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm, so others can experience this world too. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about what happens next. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support, because only true fans understand the importance of being part of this amazing community.